What's up, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 2 Recap. I'm Edward Lewis, publisher of BruinSportsport.com. He's Joey Coffin, the UCLA beat writer for the OC Register, and we're here today at the Rose Bowl for the final spring practice of UCLA's, 2015 spring season. And Joey, news and notes, getting into those before we dive into the spring game and spring showcase and all that drama. Alex Van Dyke sat out today. He was the only off-season surgery guy to sit out the spring. So basically they came out of spring healthy. Kenny Walker left practice early with kind of an undisclosed injury. It looked more like a head injury than anything, like a little precaution, but didn't look to be too terribly serious. So UCLA made it out of spring ball healthy, and it looks like they're going to be ready to go. Jim Moore said after, Scott Quisenberry is probably the only key guy they'll be missing at the start of fall camp in August. So that was obviously big for UCLA. Getting into what we need to talk about here, though, is spring game versus spring showcase. This is going to be something I think people debate on message boards and stuff for the next couple hours, couple days. How was it boring? Was it not boring? Should they have done a game? Should they have done practice? What did you make of it all?
I don't know if it was boring. At times it was interesting. The 11-on-11 stuff I think is interesting and whatnot. But I think the interesting point is they didn't do a game, and I think there would be a lot of value in having a game because you have four quarterbacks who have never played, or with the exception of Jerry Neuheisel, who have ever played in a game. And Rosen's never played in a college game or been on the sidelines of a college game. So you had an opportunity to get quarterbacks closest thing to a simulated game in a college stadium in a big environment. And you could have had a bigger crowd, I think, with a game. So those are things I think would have been helpful to see, to have a full-on drive. And then how do you respond if the drive doesn't go well? How do you follow up a good drive? There would have just been, I think, more reps, and I think there would have been a chance to maybe see more from your quarterbacks in that situation. I get they're a veteran team. You got 18 starters back, and maybe you feel you don't need to have a full-on game with all the fireworks and whatnot. But for a young quarterback, I think it would have been helpful.
We asked Jim Moore after the game, or I guess after the showcase, why he didn't have a game. And his really number one reason basically sounded like this. You can't have recruits at your event if you're going to call it a game. So his answer to that was call it a showcase and have just a practice, and that way you can have recruits. And it worked. I mean, they had dozens and dozens of recruits out here, including possibly the number one player, maybe even in the country in 2017, and Najee Harris, an Alabama commitment out here. So it worked. They did get recruits out here, but at the same time, I don't know if there were a whole lot of recruits necessarily totally enjoying themselves. I mean, it wasn't. I saw a lot of them actually sitting down. A lot of them looked like they were kind of like, okay, I want to see a little more action, a little more of this and that. So last year they had it at the Home Depot Center, I guess it's StubHub Center now, and they did 11-on-11, full scrimmaging. Nobody really got hurt, and like you said, you got to see a lot from the quarterbacks, younger guys like Ashanti Ward and Jerry Neuheisel were able to perform while Brett Hundley took the day off kind of thing. And I just think that format worked a lot better. I think if they could find a way to finagle it where they could still get recruits into the facility and then also able to run 11-on-11s live, full pads hitting, I think that would be kind of ideal for fans and everybody else.
It's an interesting balancing act because Morris said that recruiting is the lifeblood of your program. And do you do something for recruiting, or do you do something that potentially helps the guys in your locker room? So it's kind of this rope you have to try and walk tightly. So I don't know what the right answer is.
So getting into the on-the-field play, let's talk about quarterback battle. We've talked about it every day. The last 14 days, might as well bring it up on the last one. It was kind of a split 11-on-11 for everybody. I think Jerry Neuheisel, Ashanti Ward, Josh Rosen, and Mike Faithful all got just about equal amount of reps in 11-on-11s. Me personally, I thought Josh Rosen looked like the guy again today. What do you think of the four today?
I don't think it's just you personally. I think it's about all 8,000 people in the stadium thought Rosen probably looked the best today. I mean, I think he was like 13 of 17, 2 touchdowns. He had one interception, which I think was to Thomas. It was intended for Thomas Duarte. He was running kind of a post right over the middle of the field, and it was overthrown. Or you could say Duarte kind of undercut the route. Depends how you look at it. But he looked as good as he has all spring. And I think we've touched on this a couple times, but the thing that, at least to me, continues to stand out is every time he drops back to pass, he's looking downfield. You see with Jerry Neuheisel, you see with some of the other guys, if there's a big rush, they immediately turn their head toward the sideline or turn their head back, and they look like they're a kid playing out in the street and is going to drop back 20 yards and then come up in the pocket and make some kind of crazy throw. But Rosen seems very disciplined for a freshman, continues to look downfield, look at his guys. I think that's, to me, the biggest thing that he's shown this spring is the ability to kind of know where he's going with the football and kind of have a level head.
On the 13 for 17, he actually, one of those 4 incompletions could have been a drop from Logan Sweet in the end zone. It was a great ball from Rosen, about 35 yards in the corner of the end zone. He looked like he dropped it. So Rosen's day could have even been better than 13 for 17 with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception.
I think Ashanti Woolley had a really nice throw too. It was dropped, but it was about a 40-yard pass in the air. I think it seemed early on in spring it was going to be whether UCLA had 2 choices. It was going to be the freshman Rosen, or it was going to be kind of steady Eddie Jerry Neuheisel, the guy who's very kind of knows the offense, knows the drill, has won you a game before. But I think Ashanti's kind of maybe has raised his stock a little more, I think, this spring camp than Jerry has, just with his ability to make kind of flash and have big plays, big throws with the big arm strength.
Let's get in top performers. There was 11-11s today, 1-on-1s today. So give me one of your guys that kind of popped to you throughout those drills.
I think Craig Lee continued to have a pretty good spring. I mean, there are times where he might, I think you were pointing this out, might run into a lineman. But in general, he's got pretty good downfield speed. So when he hits a hole, and he did that a couple times today, he can really break off some. He had one like 15, 20-yard run. I think the first long run he had, there hadn't been anything excitement at all during the spring game. You had warm-ups, you had stretching, you had position drills, and finally, like 50 minutes in, they go to 11-on-11s, and Lee breaks off a 15-yard run, a pretty good run, but a 15-yard run nonetheless, and everybody goes crazy. So he had a good day.
I had 2. I had Randall Goforth. Thought he looked great in one-on-ones. I think he was 4 for 4 with a near interception on an out route from Jerry Neuheisel. He looked awesome. Kind of can't wait to see him get back from his shoulder surgeries, because now he'll be able to hit after that. I mean, you can make the argument that he's not only this team's best safety, but he could be this team's best corner in terms of coverage, and came in as a corner too. So I thought he had a good spring and a good spring showcase. And the other guy, I had Jordan Lasley. I know he dropped that 40-yarder you were talking about from Woolard, but then he came back the next play and caught a 40-yarder from Woolard with his left hand with a dude dragging on him. And then in 1-on-1s and 11-on-11s, he had a bunch of other catches. And really, he started off the spring throwing fists at everybody and fighting everybody. In the last kind of 10 days or so, he's really come around and not fought anybody and really had a nice spring. So I think he's going to be a guy that has a chance to be in the 2 deep in fall camp. So give me your last top performer of the day.
I think this one's kind of an obvious pick, but Miles Jack again looked terrific. He had a big interception during one-on-one drills. His just athleticism showed. He didn't try out kick returner again today, but we asked him about that afterwards, and he said that's something he would like to do. He said Deshaun Foster was actually the coach who brought that up and said, let's try Miles out a kick returner. And he didn't do it today, but the 3 other practices this week, he looked pretty good at it. He had the one he took back on Thursday, and he said he'd like to do it. He hasn't done it since his sophomore year of high school, but he's got athleticism, and he's a bigger guy returning kicks. You don't normally see linebackers ever as a kick returner, but if there's anybody going to do it, it might be Miles Jack.
That'll wrap up our coverage of UCLA spring ball. As always, you can follow Joey's coverage of UCLA on Twitter at Joey R. Kaufman. You can follow me on Twitter at Edward_Lewis. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in to the Cover 2 Recap.